Gukesh was defeated 3 consecutive times in classical chess that is happening now in Samarkand in Uzbekistan. First game was against the youngest grandmaster Abhimanyu Mishra of India. Gukesh played as black pieces. Mishra starts with e4. Gukesh answers with e5, nf3 and nc6, bishop c4 and bishop c5, which is the Italian game Giuoco Piano in move 12. Gukesh with a blunder with g4 threatening the knight. The engine suggests the other pawn attacking the bishop. Anyways, Mishra then played a brilliancy, which is pawn takes d6. Gukesh captured the knight, and Mishra with a capture in c7. Queen moves and knight takes f3. So basically, one knight exchange for 3 pawns. Because of that early sacrifice by Mishra, he controlled the tempo in the mid-game. In move 38, Gukesh tried to counter-attack with rook check and knight check. But couple of moves later, Gukesh knight got captured. And it's 2 pawns up for Mishra, and Mishra got to separate passed pawn, which is very hard to defend. Gukesh tried a check. Mishra moved his king to c3, and one last check was delivered. And after king to b3, Gukesh resigned, ran out of check, and rook to f8 is coming and then promotes. The second one was against Greek grandmaster Nicholas Theodorou. Gukesh plays white pieces, and he opened up with e4 and black played e5, knight f3 and knight f6, which is the Petrov defense. Knight capture, pawn d6, and after knight step back, there's knight capture. The early and middle game was so equal, and Gukesh even managed to squeeze a 1-pawn lead in move 29. But the black 2 connected pawns is a problem. And after pawn to d3, Gukesh commits some inaccuracies, which is the rook to a 6 threatening the pawn. But Theodorou ignores it and plays pawn to c4. And Gukesh with another mistake, which is rook check. The engine suggests move the king closer to stop the pawns. Anyways, Gukesh bombarded Theodorou with a series of checks, but the black slowly moves towards the passed pawn. It was 8 checks of Gukesh, but after king to c5. Gukesh tried to guard the pawn, but Theodorou with a rook check. King f3. And here comes the pawn. Gukesh plans to push his own pawn. But after rook c1, Gukesh resigned, because his passed pawn could be stopped. Meanwhile, Theodorou's other pawn could be promoted. The last game was against 16 years old, young Grandmaster Gürel of Turkey. Gukesh played as black pieces. Gürel starts with e4, and Gukesh played c6, d4, and d5. e5 for Gürel and bishop, c5 for Gukesh, which is the Caro-Kann advance variation. The game was steady until Gukesh find an opening in white queen side. Queen takes pawn. Some exchanges happen, and Gukesh with consecutive attacks on Gürel's king. That makes it unable to castle. It was an even match. But after Gukesh moved his rook to e4, Gürel with a big mistake, which is queen to d1. Maybe he's trying to attack the h5 pawn, because this allowed Gukesh to play knight to a5, and that forced Gürel to exchange queen. In crucial moments, both players have passed pawns, but Gukesh moves his bishop to e7, and after g4, Gukesh captured the a3 pawn. The best move is bishop captures the bishop. Rook takes bishop, but Gukesh did saw the passed pawn at g-file, an h-file in which soon be connected pawn and might give him trouble. That's why he captures the a3 pawn. Gürel with bishop takes Gukesh captures the h6 pawn. But here comes the pawn, and Gürel with a strong support with his pawn, or make it 2 pawns. Gürel was also 1 piece up. The bishop is defending the diagonal, and his pawn is much faster. That's why the world champ resigned. That 3 consecutive losses dropped his rating by 15 points. After 2 more draws against Deschmuch and Hovhannissian, Gukesh managed to win against Sargsyan of Armenia. Game starts with Gukesh to e4, Gabriel with e5, knight f3 and knight c6, bishop c4 and bishop f6, d3 and bishop e7, which become Italian game, 2 knight defense. Gukesh builds a lead in middle game, and the rook of Gabriel is stuck guarding the pawn in b5. And after bishop d6, Gabriel resigned, because the passed pawn will be a threat and his rook couldn't move because it's defending the pawn to not be captured. And because of that, Gukesh managed to end the lose streak and is back with momentum.